Hi guys, another video. We're talking about FEMY on Friday. Um, you're gonna learn that what it's like to lose. What it's like to lose when you trade your setups and they don't work. So a lot of cool stuff on this chart. Ended up losing twice, and then I made money on the last one, but I didn't really get a big fade on it. Here, we'll talk about it. Show you the chart. Everyone likes charts. You see my wonderful FEMY chart. Wonderful FEMY chart here. I'll talk about these shorts. Talk about what I was seeing in the pre-market. And yeah, and talk about being mental. A chart where you get mentally exhausted on, man. But there was once upon a time where I would take, you know, like tons of losses, just losing like, thousands of thousands of thousands, and then like maybe you get a move at the top, and but over time I've learned to on these really strong ones try to stick with the liquidity patterns, try to short stocks near the top with tight risk, and see if it works, see if it doesn't. So what's already happening? So FEMY multi-day runner. Um, on the hourly holding up. Um, Massive push. So I get on the pre-market and I get on my computer sometime in this consolidation, and I'm already looking at this, and I'm like, oh, $2 level. What is $2 level? It is very very painted. See how they're just holding $2. Whole dollar and half dollar is very interesting in low flows because a lot of people are taught that they're important psychological levels, and they are, but the way a lot of people think about them is kind of the opposite of what tends to happen, right? A lot of times you hear, oh, if a stock comes up to a whole dollar and massively rejects it, that's weak, right? You get a big rejection at a whole dollar level, and believe it or not, because enough retail thinks things like that, enough short sellers think things like that, that those types of liquidity levels, that type of thinking can be abused, right? You'll see, and we'll see it all over this chart. We'll see it again and again and again of faking weakness at key psychological levels that retail likes to trade on, and having the complete opposite effect happen, right? So I already see the big push, makes a big squeeze, it's at new highs, and I see it at 2 hour paint. So I'm watching this, I see this pullback, then I see an aggressive initiation off of deep support, which usually I think is really weak. But I was like, man, I really want to get above this $2 level, right? So I see this big push, I see a pullback, and then I see the next push. And what's really interesting is on this candle, it came up to $2. And what was that $2? It was 45,000 shares on the ask, right? Which, by the way, the ask at every other price level, 1.99, 1.98, was all what do you call it? Like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 shares, and then you get up to $2, and it's 40, 45,000 shares. Doesn't seem normal, right? And what you learn, and I talked about this in the level 2 videos, is a lot of times level 2 manipulation can give you an idea of what the manipulator is trying to do in terms of chart paint, right? It's like why does he not want this level to get broken, right? He's purposely holding it under this level. And that's why I said right here, they have a 40K wall at $2. $2 is very, very painted to the left, right? So essentially, I see the $2 paint here, I see it here, and then I know from how chart paint works, it's like there's no trade, especially on the short side, until that level gets broken. But I'm also thinking, what's the other thing that can happen? Well, maybe it just breaks through that level and goes straight to new highs, right? Because highs aren't that far away from that level. So I noticed they're holding it. They hold it all the way into market open, which is this is a common tactic on longs. Like if a market maker wants to paint a chart, what often happens is they'll hold lower highs into the open, and then they'll use the market open volume to squeeze through those highs, right? So when I saw this candle push, I almost never short 9:30 a.m. candles. I like to at least get some type of even if it's like a couple minutes. But man, I saw the volume come in. I immediately saw millions of shares out of the open. Then one of those things where like it pushed to 2.1, It pulled all the way back to 1.9, and then it came right back up to 2.1, and that's usually really strong. And when it broke high day, like I said, on very strong, high volume tickers, I usually don't like to guess. I usually don't like to short high day clearouts, believe it or not. If I think something's really, really strong and really, really painted and has big, big volume, like I learn that what I want to wait for is some type of long trappy structure that a stock that pushes towards highs, that takes out key levels, pushes towards highs, the volume comes in, and then starts to look really weak. I don't like guessing high day candles in the vast majority of situations. So if you every once in a while you'll have like a 9:30 a.m. high day clear out they can short, but it's not really a super common pattern. What's some other stuff? Wasn't looking to short this at all just because the volume was super consistent. I couldn't really get a good read on it. Very interesting at this candle, 943. Again, if you record your screen, they put a 95,000 share bid at 214. And interesting enough, they let it get taken out and then it insta reclaimed. It started pushing, and I actually thought that was really strong. I was like, man, they just like dumped. They just let like almost 100K shares dump into one of these higher lows. They instantly soaked it, and the volume is just super consistent. I was like, um, let me wait. One thing I learned on really strong stocks, um, especially ones that are already doing like long, short, trappy moves in the pre-market, is like I really want to wait for the structure, or I want to wait for some type of candle where people think it should go, but it isn't going, right? So we get a big push, and I see it pushes right up to 2.5, and you get a big, heavy rejection. And I know, again, I made a lot of comments on this that I was like, oh, they attacked that 2.5 level and pulled it. And this is one of those cases where just like how $2 was really weak in the pre-market, now they're making 2.5 seem really weak by having a big rejection and a massive what I call a quick dump to the 1 minute 20 is often a huge short bait. So it's like, believe it or not, really, really, really strong stocks. I don't like to see quick dumps like this. I actually don't. It encourages shorts to chase, the chase weakness. And it freaks longs out. If you ever trade with longs, I actually recommend trading, especially guys who actually know what they're doing, um, and actually make good money. You should listen to how longs are logging these structures and how longs react to these types of candles. Right? It's very interesting to see how the other side of the trade is how people are reacting. Right? Because how long's reacting is just as important to forming a thesis as than how you as a short might be reacting, right? So, see the pullback, see the push. If this kind of pushed like 2.5 and got really heavy, maybe I would have shorted it, but it just did one of these little pushes. I'm like, all right, like this is 2.45, this is around 2.45. I'll make an alert, put it there. Maybe if I get an aggressive like 5 minute flag trap above that level, maybe if it pulls down to the 5 minute 9, initiates and breaks 2.45, gets really heavy, maybe I'll make a tape read and see if I think it's weak and try to make an entry. But what's really interesting is we got low volume, low volume, low volume. It breaks this like little flat bottom. They were holding this 2.33. They break it by a few cents, and then you see a ton of buying come, like a ton of buying comes in on this candle. And I'm like, man, I hope this candle goes through 245. I'm going to read the ass. I'm always reading the ass. I'm like reading it, reading it, reading it. And I notice it hits 2.41, 2.42, especially 2.41, and hidden sellers keep coming in. Like people are trying to buy on this candle. People are trying, but like 2.4, 2.41 is just like not moving. You're seeing all these orders go in and it goes not moving. I was like, well, this isn't really the level I was looking for. But I'll throw up a starter, right? I noticed 2.41 was really heavy, so I put in a limit order at 2.4. I was like, I'll put one set below it. I'll probably get filled. Um, and I'll wait for 2.45 and maybe act, if it actually reaches the level I want, I'll add more, right? So I had that, but it was only on like 1/3 size and then it cracked. Because also I saw these higher lows. So I'm like, oh, there's some higher lows, get a higher low crack. And I'm like, man, my size isn't really big. I don't want to like cover too aggressively. I took like one small cover near VWAP, but I was pretty much holding my entire position, looking to add higher. Um, and I still had that 2.45 level here. So I was like, well, let's see if it comes back up, reaches 2.45, fakes out longs, maybe I get a short. Because at this point, I'm like, man, they had a big squeeze here and a big squeeze here, and they're like, and I saw this aggressive initiation off of VWAP here. Saw this, and up, 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 and I thought this was fake strength. I thought they were gonna pull this. So I had 2.45. 2.45 got broken on this candle, and I went in. I was like, short this candle, and again, it initially worked. It got all the way down to 2.37, and it looked like it got really heavy. The volume got lower. It was like pulling back, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like my big brain short ideas seems to be working. And then what happens? It just the ass just starts moving up like 2.38, 2.39, 2.4, 2.4, 2.4, da 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 da, and I get squeezed on this candle, take a loss. So shorted here, got squeezed here, and I'm like, man, but as I said in my last video, or my last FEMY video, it's like I always like to wait for. If I see something going straight up like the 1 minute 9, 1 minute 20, in most cases I'll wait for the new structure, right? So if it's just making higher highs and higher lows, I don't play guess the top, especially like it's a great way to lose money. Guess the top is a great way to lose money. So we get the next structure, right? And what do we see here? It pushes the 3, and we very similar to 2.5. It breaks 3, and we get a big reject. And I'm like, I usually don't super like. Oh my god, this chart is hurting my brain. Okay, maybe like this. Um, so I see a big whole dollar reject, and I never ever short these candles. I never short them, especially on strong stocks. I said, yeah, I said in my Discord, I was like, I'm not a fan of shorting whole dollar blow-offs, right? Because I think they could be huge short traps, right? Like, oh, let's make 3 look super, super. Let's have a parabolic move into 3, and then have this, massive rejection, at a whole dollar that like. But every time I think of the structure, I think, man, longs are taking profit at that level, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to wait for 3, I'm going to sell. So shorts are hammering it because it's extended at a key level, and it seems to be working, right? So shorts are hammering in, longs are taking profits, and it just, um, in the right context, it could be huge, huge bait, for another squeeze. But again, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing like, man, 1 short squeeze, 2 short squeeze. Well, this could kind of be all counted as the same one, I guess. But 3, I'm like, is he really going to do another 4th squeeze on a stock that's up like, an 800% or whatever? It's probably like 600%. But I was like, man, eventually, the way I think about a lot of these strong stocks and a lot of these structures is like, eventually one of these structures is going to have a long trap. They're gonna like squeeze shorts. They're gonna squeeze shorts, and eventually one of them is going to look like it's going to squeeze shorts. It's going to break key levels, and it's going to dump. Right? Like the more and more structures that get set, the more and more likely it is that some type of long trappy move is coming. That especially everyone who got squeezed on the way up is going to think it's strong, but it's not, and that a lot of times that signals the top, or at least the beginning of a pretty decent fade that you can make some money on. So this structure right here. So I see the pullback, and I see it pushed to $3. I'm like, I really wanted this to break $3, but what happened was they tapped it, and then the bid dumped on big volume, and I was like, I am not shorting that. Like, if this got like the 305 and did that, then I actually would have hit it. But since this didn't break 3, very similar to the pre-market, where I wanted this to break 2, I want those levels to get broken. I want the $3 people risking $3 to get stopped out and then come back, right? That's really what I want. I don't want it to see get rejected right below it, because then my mind changes to like, well, that could just be more chart paint. So that's why I said they're doing a lot of fake half whole dollar resistance. $2 in the pre-market, $2.50 in the last structure, $3 here. But again, I'm thinking about my 5-minute flag trap. I was like, 1 minute 50, 5 minute 9. Man, what if they tap that and there's a crazy initiation? I would kill for this to push 3. So in this case, I'm actually thinking This taps to 1 minute 9, or 1 minute 55, minute 9. We get a big reclaim off of support. And I saw this and I saw this. I was like, please break three. And I thought what was going to happen was I thought it was going to break three. I thought it was going to get super heavy. And then I thought it was going to slam down. Like, that would be a classic 5 minute flag trap. So I saw the three break. It pushes up to 306, and I noticed 310 has this massive ass holding it down. And not massive, but it was pretty big. It was like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 shares, and it wasn't getting eaten. So, and then the tape started stalling at like 307, 308, 307, 308. So I just started shorting. I was like, okay, cool, another tight risk short. High day was 313. You know, I thought this $3 level was painted. I'm going to get above $3. It's going to be a long trap. It's going to go down. What happens? Somebody puts 100,000 shares on the bid at 304, and I'm just risking high day, and I get stopped out right at high day on this candle. And I learned that when I get stopped out, like, I don't enter back in most cases. Like, I learned that, like, trying to, like, just re-enter back in, like, oh, it's rejected. Oh, man, I'm so dumb. Like, I usually don't try to do it. So, because you can get chopped up really easily. So, anyway, makes a massive squeeze, and then pulls back. Big tape shift here, just tons and tons of selling, and now the stock is actually getting pretty extended. And I'm like, all right, man, this is like the fifth structure today. This is like the fifth structure. It's like, okay, what does the chart look like? And I'm like, all right, you have 347 up here, and a lot of times on these really strong plays, the short can come like 1 hour later, 90 minutes later, and 2 hours later. You know what I mean? So I know it really pays to be patient with these types of like really strong high value movers, because a lot of times the long trap move just comes a lot later. So I'm like, okay, we have 340 here. We have a controlled walk down, so lower highs and lower lows. Comes down right to support. Massive volume off of support. Like, look at this. Like, volume is so low, and then you just get buying, 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 buy. And I see this massive push, and I always say aggressive moves off of deep support are super weak. So I was super crazy bearish this entire move, and I was like, please break 340, man. Like, please break this lower high. So retail's gonna think it's gonna squeeze, and so I can short the stock above 340. But on this push, comes up here. What happens is 120,000 shares on the ask at 340. And again, this kind of gets back to what happened in pre-market at 2, where a lot of times where a stock has a really super big ask at a key level, in this case the previous lower high, it could mean chart paint for later, but sometimes I've seen it a few times where a big ask in this situation they could just hold it and it could just roll over. So I was like, you know what? Just in case this ends up not even breaking 3.4, let me take a short into 3.3. So I shorted this pullback because the ask didn't even get touched. Saw the pullback, shorted into 3.3s, and I'm like, let me just put on a starter and wait for another move above 3.4. To get like what I would consider the real trade. So comes down to support, bounces 4 times, and I'm like, I cannot. I was watching this for an hour, and I was like, I cannot believe they're just holding this $3 higher low level, which ends up being important later, as we'll see. You know, the rigor is holding higher lows above a key hold dollar level. A lot of longs who are buying the dip on this are risking $3. They're risking this lower high. They're risking higher low. They're risking this higher low. Very important to realize that longs, whenever you see higher lows and key levels get held, that more and more retail longs are continuously in the money. It's really important. Like, how are longs positioning themselves? Where are they risking? And what type of move are they expecting? And again, get another high volume push off of support. And I was like, please let this break 3.4. Man, I really want to short about 3.4. But then they do this low volume pullback into this like bullish pennant, you know, this like pennant flag, whatever you want to call it. And then they have a big initiation. They put 35,000 shares on the ask at 3.32. It breaks through it and then instantly rejects it, and I short this candle because I was like, oh, that's a classic long trap. Aggressive move off support. You paint a little flag, you do a high volume breakout, you reject the breakout, and you pull. So I shorted this candle, and then I shorted this candle, or shorted, yeah. And then it broke, and I was like, now this has to break the higher, like, dude, come on, like, this has got to break these higher lows, man. Look how painted these higher lows. I was like, if this cracks these higher lows, it's going to go, like, straight through 3. You could get a fat dump to VWAP, that type of thing. And then what happens? They just start grinding it up, and I see this very controlled grind up here. I was like, man, this move's so manipulated. This is like this is usually how stocks move. They soak, they soak, they soak, they break out. But this is just grind. This is like, this is just grinding, dude. It's grinding. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put again back to my Pixie video. I'm gonna put my risk at break even, so that way, if I put my, which was like in the mid 330s, I was like, if I get stopped out, I'll wait for the real move above 3.4 and I'll slam it. So we get there, and here comes 3.4. This is at 3.39. I'm waiting for 3.4. It's so painted. They had that 100,000 share ask holding it down. But in this case, I think it's bearish, because again, where here it could be really bullish because this is like the beginning of the move. Well, this is like, again, this is like the 4th or 5th structure. Like, it's eventually the context becomes important and the extension becomes important, right? And you're just going to have to pick a bias. And the more and more structures that get painted and the more and more breakouts that get painted, eventually one of them's not going to work, even if it's using the same trick as a blow. So level 2 in the bid, the games on a level 2 in the bid can be really interesting, but you have to like factor in the context of the trade, right? How extended is it? How many shorts have gotten squeezed? You know what I mean? What's the volume looking like? What's the chart paint looking like? So anyway, it comes up to 3.4. It breaks it. The stop losses push it to 3.48, and then it just pulls back, and I just start shorting it. Like, this is an A plus short. Like, this, when you get over the painted level and you're bearish a structure like this, and this is like, because I was thinking like, oh, there's could reach 3.5, but I'm not thinking high day. I'm thinking 3.4 bare minimum, maybe 3.5. If I see 3.4 get broken and I see any type of weakness or any type of pullback, I am just shorting into the bid. This is the short. I can't risk waiting. A lot of shorts will tell me, oh, I'm waiting for higher levels. I'm waiting for higher. I was waiting for this level, this level, this level. And, sometimes, that's a good idea. But sometimes when there's chart paint, that's why the moment the main level I'm looking at gets broken, I'm just reading the level 2. I'm reading the ask on the level 2. I'm looking at the tape and I'm seeing what type of reaction there is, right? So I just market ordered straight in. I got 3.43s. Market order pulls back sub 340. You actually had a few seconds to get in if you're reading it, and then the bid dropped at 2.9s. And then, so I took some profits, and then funny enough, I saw this manipulated push, and I was like, all right, man, if it breaks through to 3.3s, this might just be a manipulated push straight up. So I'll put my risk at 3.32, and I got stopped out top tick on the sticker on the rest of my shares. But then I thought, I saw the low volume pullback, and I was like, this is kind of like a big, like retail, long trap. Like, usually, the way a lot of manipulated moves work is they have to catch people off guard. So, like, the biggest squeezes happen when, like, tickers like this happen, then you get an immediate push back up. Like, it has to immediately go. If there's like a low volume pullback, you get a 1-minute flag, and you're inviting retail to buy into the ask for the, because, they're going to see this pullback and they're going to think, oh, I'm going to be able to long into 3.3 and it's going to keep going, like manipulated squeezes happen when people least expect them, right? Which often means if you're going to be longing manipulated move, it either goes right away or usually just doesn't go at all, right? So I actually reshorted. I got stopped at 3.32, reshorted in this stall, and I was just risking probably high 3.3s because I was just expecting this to roll over. The real candle to short was actually this. Look at this candle. Like there was like 70,000 shares on the bid. It got taken out. We had this huge, almost like 650K volume candle come in. Hits 3.3, which is the same level as over here. As you notice, like they're not even letting this level break. Rolls over for a nice, 10% fade, right? Rolls over for a nice 10% fade. Again, another aggressive push. I think aggressive pushes off deep support are super weak. I did not freak out on this at all. I was just watching, yeah, if this broke like 3.4, 3.45, I would have got it out. But I was like, you know what? Look how like heavy these levels are. It just comes up to that same level. It pulls back and I added more. So I was like, I shorted here, I shorted here. Again, because I'm just like aggressive moves off deep support are weak, man. They're weak, especially when a stock is extended. Like, because if you think about it this way, like all of retail and every single trade have seen how big of a move this has already made. So if they see moves like this or like this, they're all gonna think it's strong, man. It was strong earlier. Why wouldn't it be strong now? That's how people think. Um, so I actually shorted this, and I'm like, man, this is a great move for a swing short. I thought they were gonna fake people out, pull it into AH, and unwind it. I thought this was gonna unwind, and I was gonna big brain hold. I even went to the park with my daughter. I'm like, I'll make one little cover down here, and I'm just going to uh I'll go to the park with my daughter. I'll come back at like 5:36, and it'll be in the 2.3s, and I can cover the rest. That's honestly what I was thinking. But I was periodically checking it on my phone at the park, kind of degen checking the chart. And sadly, yeah, it just kind of grinded back up and went sideways, and I covered like during this thin grind. I didn't want to hold over the weekend, pay the borrow fees, and yeah, man, who knows? Ideally, since I'm not in the short anymore, this just squeezes again on Monday. That'd be A plus 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 plus. Um, or who knows? Maybe it gaps down. It becomes a first red day type of short and unwinds. All right, this video is way longer, but there's a lot more to talk about. Chart. Here's my amazing chart. I worked so hard and made a little bit of money. um, but yeah, I do want to show the chart though because like understanding the way I trade and like what tickers, like long trap tickers and long trap patterns I'm trading, like you'll see how I'm able to manage my risk on these trades. And this is like a type of trade where pyramiding lower would have really caused a lot of losses on a trade, which, like I said, trades like this, I take minimal losses on the way up because I'm shorting very specific long trappy price action that's usually somewhat near the top. And I'm usually assuming it's not going to break high today. Like a lot of my patterns are like that. So when they don't work, I do take losses, but they're not super massive. When they do work, I'm usually not pyramiding a lot, so I do miss out on a lot of profits as it goes down. But my entry and my averages tend to be quite good. Uh, so it's kind of a smaller losses, but also slightly smaller winners type of way of trading. But yeah, hope that was informative. I did. This was a very. I didn't even talk about this short. This was a very small short up here. But yeah, you could see. Here's me shorting that candle, that big aggressive initiation off of support. That I saw that big ask. I just went in. I really wanted to add full size above it. Here's me shorting that very long trampy candle right here. Here's me stopping out at break even, and here's me hitting the 3.4 backside clear out. And yeah, and here's me getting stopped out, me getting back in, me adding, and then I did cover way. It's not showing here, but there's a cover at like I don't know, like 7 o'clock market. I don't know before market closed at 8. I covered the rest of my share. So yeah, I had to take a shower after this one, man. I was tired. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Long video. Shout out to anyone who stuck through the whole thing. I see ya.